So I know a little bit of this, Fabiana, is going to be like a tiny bit of review because we kind of started Taiga, then we looked at the time and said, oh dear, we better move on, right? Because we needed to finish the video for yesterday and we needed to go ahead and get some time to work on our Google Docs. So the Taiga, the coniferous forest. I do know we started off with that yesterday, and that should be in your notes. What does the word coniferous mean? That's an old vocabulary word. You should already know that. Hunter. A tree that has cones on it, like a pine tree. Very good, sir. Excellent. So your boreal forest, your coniferous forest, is the largest terrestrial biome on Earth. So we've already said that the tundras cover 1/5 of the Earth. The taigas are the largest. You're talking like huge swaths of Russia and stuff like that. We're starting to run out of land, right? And we still have other things to go because we have grasslands in there, deserts in there, deciduous forests in there, temperate rainforests in there, tropical rainforests are in there. So it's important to understand, like, we're starting to like really narrow down how much land we have left, and we have quite a few ecosystems to go. Again, if we want to get into every single biome, if we've noticed so far, Max has those 4 things, right? Sun, soil, temperature, and water. Those 4 main abiotic factors, and now they all are starting to be a little more important. The sunlight in the taiga, since it's not that far from the tundra, is not very intense. It's intense enough for trees to grow, but you do know that one of the things that the coniferous forest has to do, those trees are very dark green. They're that dark green so they can absorb more sunlight because the sunlight in that area is not as intense as it could be. And so they're able to absorb more of the sun's energy and go through photosynthesis. Short winter days, and we kind of saw some of that with the camping yesterday during the Arctic bumblebee, right? I mean, the day lasted all day long, but the days are super short, and then the winters, the nights are pretty long. And again, that has to do with the tilt of the Earth. We talked a little bit about the fires yesterday. Did we talk about that a whole lot in here with the different fires? All right, so you have these different cones on the trees, and you would think, like, fire's pretty destructive, right? You think fire's a bad thing, but there's some pretty amazing pine cones and different types of cones on the trees, and they literally don't open until there's a fire. And when there's enough heat, like the heat of a fire, they swell open, they pop open, and the seeds come out, and that's those little ones that spin down like little helicopters. I'm sure you've seen those before. I'm sure you've picked them up and thrown them. The little bitty ones come out of pine cones. Yes, sir. Question. So Maddox made the point that fires necessarily they're not always a bad thing because they can kill old undergrowth and old dead trees. And when they do that and those pine cones kind of open and explode and throw seeds everywhere, then you can have new growth in the forest. And I know I got to see some of that when I was in Yellowstone. They talked about that, and they talked about these pine cones too, which is pretty awesome. The precipitation. So you have the sun, you have the water, pretty high in the taiga. Snow in the winter, rain during the summer. The total precipitation is between 10 and 30 inches. Not a whole lot, not rainforest type stuff, but enough rain to sustain trees, to sustain bushes and grasses, especially in the summertime. The soil has to be pretty good, right? It's not the most amazing soil. I mean, it's kind of rocky, a little acidic, but it's good enough to have trees and plants growing in it. We're not talking grassland type stuff, right? Not super fertile where like people just make giant farms, but it's good enough. And then the temperature. Well, it depends on what time of year it is. It'd be kind of cold in the winter and not super hot in the summer, but not freezing as well. I apologize about this one. If I went back and changed this, Nolan, it would erase everybody's codes, and I don't want to do that. The taiga doesn't have a lot of plant diversity. It's not like the rainforest. It's not like the deciduous forest. You're going to find a lot of those cone-bearing trees. You'll find some smaller bushes and some grasses, but it's not really crazy. And again, that goes back to the thin, acidic soil that's not super nutrient rich. Again, plants need to get nutrients from the soil and go through photosynthesis in order to survive. And much like the tundra, the soil can be kind of rocky. Evergreens, we've talked about that, right? It's the same thing as a conifer because they are always green. So we went through that. And we talked about all of the different adaptations that you can have. Again, all of this stuff, Collins, We talked about the snow sliding off the conifers. You can come back in here and get some of this stuff out. But again, I don't think all of this is like super important stuff to be like test type stuff. It's just adaptations of the different plants in the taiga. Did we watch this yesterday? All right, we'll watch this in here today. If you're at home, you got to watch this as well. We'll come back, at the end of the video and watch this. Yes. All right. Taiga animals. Remember, it's not a really super long distance between taiga and tundra. It's still pretty cold to live there. It's a very difficult place to live. Very similar to the tundra, you're going to have thick fur coats. You need to hibernate or migrate in order to make it through the winters. The winters are pretty harsh. So we've got squirrels, birds, owls. You don't have to write ermine and moles. Deer, moose, elk. If you have deer, moose, and elk, you're going to have bears, like grizzly bears. You're going to have wolves. You'll have a lynx. I'll show you the picture of that and tell you a cool story in a minute. Wolverines, not Wolverine, like the actual little mean animal Wolverines. And again, you have to be able to survive in that area. So you need to be fast in order to either track down your prey or fast enough to get away from the predators. If you read in here about camouflage, some animals change their color between the summer and the winter. And we've talked about that with the different types of rabbits and the foxes and things like that as well. And there's tropical rainforest. So let's go back to here. You hit. So again, Hayden, I take these, what I guess you would consider quick notes, like the nitty-gritty of the taiga, right? The taiga is the largest of the terrestrial biomes. It's called a coniferous forest. Coniferous is trees, and this is what Hunter told us, trees that have cones on them like a pine tree. You have sun-soil climate and water. The sun, not super direct due to the tilt of the earth, but it's a little bit better than the tundra. The soil is good, allows for trees and shrubs to grow, but it is acidic and rocky. So let's call it, instead of good, let's call it okay. Like, not the best. Could be better. Climate, long cold winters, short wet summers. The winter days are short, the summer days are long due to the tilt of the earth. Again, we got to see a little bit of that yesterday with those long days, almost like 24 hours of sunlight when we watched the Arctic bumblebee. Water, fairly high precipitation. The taiga gets snow in the winter and rain in the summer. Biotic factors. I by no means listed every biotic factor. Wolves, moose, lynx, deer, bear, and owls. You obviously have coniferous trees. All of these must adapt to the change of the seasons between heavy snowfall and rain in the summertime. And there's three things that you can do as an animal. Migrate, hibernate, or have camouflage. And I think you can do a combination of all of those. You can just migrate and have camouflage. You can have just migration. You can hibernate. It can just be a different blend of those depending on what animal you are. Any questions about the like nitty-gritty of this, like the down and dirty notes? Everybody good? All right, I'll pause this. All right, so far too often, what I'm seeing is people are struggling on the Google Docs. Like, I still have some people on estuary. That's really kind of scary to me. Kids, look at what I wrote. The taiga biome is a terrestrial land biome. You should already have that in your notes, right? That's one sentence. It's the largest of the terrestrial biome. That's like one of the first facts, right? The shorthand notes that we took. If we look back here, I wrote this. Oh, is it frozen? My bad. Oops. I wrote this, see? So I'm just kind of copying and going over different things and just putting them on words. The sun of the taiga is not very intense due to the Earth's tilt. Sorry, there's space there. The soil of the taiga is okay. Trees can grow, but it's acidic and rocky. Again, if you look back at your notes, sun, soil, climate, and water are all right there, aren't they? I'm just putting it in sentence form, Cameron. It's really not hard. The climate is long, cold winters and short, wet summers. I just made a sentence, right? Look at this. Long, cold winters, short. All I did was say the climate is. I make a sentence out of these short notes. It's not hard. People are stressing me out on this. The taiga gets a medium amount of precipitation, rain in the summer and snow in the winter. Did I cover all the abiotic factors of the taiga? Yes. Animals that live in the taiga need to be tough. Wolves, bears, lynx, moose, rabbits, owls need to adapt to the extreme cold in the seasons. They can hibernate or migrate. Many animals also have camouflage. The main plant life are coniferous trees. That adapt by being darker green to take in more sunlight, have needles instead of leaves to help hold in water, and have flexible branches that, quote unquote, shrug off snow load. So Sadie, did I pretty much take what we've talked about in all those notes and put it into 2 paragraphs? That's all I need you to do on these Google Docs, kiddos. It's not that difficult. Not difficult. So, what we're going to do now, we're going to pause this. Tropical rainforest. Now, there's that word tropical. We remember that from our vocabulary, which means it's warm all the time. Rainforest, it's a forest that rains all the time. It's a place where it rains and it's hot all the time. Tropical rainforest. The reason why it's hot all the time, anybody remember from morning work? Beta? They're on the equator. Most rainforests are located near or on the equator. They are home to half of the Earth's plant and animal species. So if you took away the oceans and you took away the rainforest, there would not be a whole lot of plants and animals left. They are winter home to those birds that migrate. They are home to tribal cultures, so they are like different tribes that still live there very primitively in the forest. They've been there for a long, long time. It is one of the places that we continuously are finding newer and more amazing medicines. So when we start hacking down all these rainforests, we're potentially getting rid of some medicines that could solve who knows what in the world, because we haven't even researched all of them yet. Everything is very interdependent. There's a lot of symbiosis inside of the rainforest. You can't take away one thing without it affecting another, and then that one thing is going to affect something else. Tropical rainforests help maintain global rain and weather patterns. It does not say weather patterns near the global. That means the entire world. They help the water cycle continue to do its thing across the entire world. Much of the water that evaporates from the trees, that transpiration, comes back down as rain. Removal of forests could change the natural rainfall patterns. Tropical rainforests are lush and warm all year long. Temperatures don't change much between night and day. Pretty much stays between 70 and 85 degrees all the time with like 100% humidity. You know those days when you walk outside and you sweat just walking outside? It's like that all the time. The environment is wet. Again, humidity of 70 stays at 77 to 88% all the time. So like literally the atmosphere is pretty much full of water all the time there. Again, because it's near the equator and it's very warm and lots of evaporation happening. The yearly rainfall ranges from 80 to 400 inches. Kiddos, it can rain so hard that it rains as much as 2 inches in an hour. I'm going to tell you now, when it rains like that here, we have massive flooding everywhere when it rains 2 inches per hour. And I know it was probably about what it did when we had that hurricane come through and school was closed forever, it seems like. In the rainforest, you're going to have plants like these epiphytes. They grow up trees in order to get to the top, because in the rainforest, the canopy, all the branches and stuff at the top, block all the sunlight from reaching the forest floor, so it's very dark on the forest floor. There are 20,000 different types of orchids. That's one kind of flower. There's 20,000 different ones in the rainforest. Again, when it says tons of plants and animals, they're not lying. That's an epiphyte that's grown way up a tree to grow at the top so it can reach the sunlight. Tropical rainforests are home to half the plant and animal species on Earth. Again, in order to live there, you got to be able to put up with a lot of rain. 27% of the bird species in the world live in the tropical rainforest. Here's some monkeys that live there. Tons of insects. It is. And then we get to this. So let's do this. Let's pause. Let's jot these notes down. We will pick back up with tropical rainforest tomorrow and dig a little bit deeper into those. Again, habitat to half the world's plants and animals. They maintain global rain patterns. The sun is intense because it's on the equator. The climate's good, soil's good, and the water's there. And we will be back here again tomorrow.